Hi guys, so we are on chapter 3, which is the last chapter. It's a really short book of Mr. McBroom's wonderful 1-acre farm. There you go. Alright, so it's called the McBroom's Ears, but in the picture he's holding up an ear of corn. So I'm wondering if it's a play on words. Let's see. Not these ears, but corn ears. Grasshoppers. Yes, they did get wind of our wonderful 1-acre farm. The long-legged, saw-legged, hop-legged rascals ate us out of house and home. You know how grasshoppers are. They'd be soon spit tobacco juice as look at you. And they're terribly hungry creatures. I guess there's nothing that they can eat more in less time than a swarm of grasshoppers. Green things especially make their mouths water. I don't intend to talk about it with a hee-haw. Mercy, no. If you know me, Josh McBroom, you know that I'd soon live in a tree as tamper with the truth. I'd best start with the weather. Summer was just waking up, but the days weren't near warm enough yet for grasshoppers. The young'uns were helping me with it dig a water well. So a long time ago, to get water, you would have to dig a well, and it's just like a hole in the ground, but they would take a bucket and they would pour in. So his kids are helping him dig one because you have to go pretty deep. They talked of growing one thing and another to enter the county fair. I guess you've heard how amazingly rich our farm is. Anything will grow in it, and quick. Seeds burst in the ground and crops shoot right up before your very eyes. Why, just yesterday our oldest boy dropped a 5-cent piece, and before he could find it, that nickel grown into a quarter. Early in the morning, a skinny, tangled-haired stranger came ambling along the road. My, he was tall. I do believe if his hat fell off, it would take a day or two to reach the ground. Howdy, sir, he said. I'm Slim-Faced John from there and there and here and other places, and I'll paint your barn cheap. That man was not only tall and skinny and tangled-haired, he was nearsighted. We don't own a barn, I said. He squinted and he laughed. Well, in that case, he said, I'll paint it free. Done, I smiled, and he painted the no barn in less than a second, with time left over. He appeared to be hungry, so my dear Melissa gave him a hearty breakfast, and he went ambling on his way. I'll be back, he waved. The young'uns and I kept digging that well. My, it was hard work. They'd lower a bucket, and I'd fill it with earth, and they'd haul it up like a tug-of-war, all 11 of them. So there's a picture. And so there's the hole with Mr. McBroom in it, and then there's all 11 of his kids. Will, Jill, Hester, Chester, Peter, Polly, Tim, Tom, Mary, Larry, and little Cloretta. I've read this book a time or two. The days grew longer and hotter, and the flies began to drop out of the air with a sunstroke. But it still wasn't grasshopper weather. Will, Jill, Hester, Chester, Peter, Polly, Tim, Tom, Mary, Larry, and little Cloretta, I had to shout from the bottom of the well. Work to do. Haul up this bucket. Oh, Pa, Chester complained from the treehouse. I'm a-fixin' to grow a watermelon for the fair, a 50-pounder. I think I'll grow a pumpkin, Polly said. Well, I'm growing impatient, I said. Haul up the bucket, my lambs, and dump it. County fair's still a week off. The next day was a real sizzler. At high noon, the yellow wax beans began melting on the vines, and they started dripping like candles. No, it wasn't grasshopper weather yet. Those leggy creatures would catch cold on a chilly day like that. We finished the well at last, with the buckets full of earth standing in a big heap beside it. Along about supper time, the tall, skinny, tangled-haired, nearsighted stranger was back. Howdy, he said. I'm Slim-Faced John from here and there and here and there and there and here and other places, and I'll dig you a water well cheap. Well, we've got a water well, I said. In that case, he answered, I'll dig it free. He stayed for supper, and then he went ambling away. "I'll be back," he waved. Another day passed, and the sunball began to outdo itself. Hot? Why, the next morning it was infernally hot, with a block of ice felt warm to the touch. Mama had to boil water to cool off. Sunflowers along the road picked up their roots and hurried under the trees for shade. Now, is this true? That was grasshopper weather. Just after breakfast, the first jumpers arrived. They came in 2s and 4s, and our farm stood green as an emerald and was bound to catch their eye. Before long, they were turning up in 6s and 8s. I must admit, those first visitors surprised us with their nice table manners. They didn't spit tobacco juice any which way. Peter sat out an old coffee can that they used for a spittoon. A spittoon would be something that they spit in. So as they're eating the corn, they don't want to eat that, the inside of the corn, the husk thing. They'd spit it out into that. But they're bugs, so they don't really have table manners. So this is, again, non-literal language. By noon, hop legs were arriving by the 50s and the 100s, and they nibbled our cabbage and the lettuce. But it was nothing to be alarmed about. We could grow vegetables faster than they could eat them, 3 or 4 crops a day. Along about sundown, the saw-legged visitors came whirling by in the hundreds and the thousands. I wasn't worried. Grasshoppers were hardly worth counting in a small number like that. "Pa," Chester said at breakfast, "County fair's tomorrow. Reckon it's time to set up my watermelons." "I want to grow a prize tomato," Mary declared. "Big as a balloon." "You young'uns use the patch behind the house," I said. "I mean to plant the farm corn." The grasshoppers didn't get in our way. Larry and little Cloretta fed them turnip greens out their hands, and I got the field plant in no time. My, it was a fine corn-growing weather. The stalks leaped right up, dangling with ears. Suddenly, a silvery green cloud rose from the horizon and raced towards us. Grasshoppers! Grasshoppers by the thousands, by the millions! And little did we know that it was the beginning of the great Grasshopper War. Or, as it came to be called, the War of McBroom's Ears. "Little Jill, Hester, Chester, Peter, Polly, Tim, Tom, Mary, Larry, and little Cloretta," I shouted. "Broom! Branches! Shoo them off!" So that's them shooing the grasshoppers off. We'll have to find out about the Great Grasshopper War tomorrow. I'm wondering what's going to happen.